Well, many Kings fans, at least on social media, have gotten their wish, and Mike Brown has been fired just 31 games into the season after signing his extension in the offseason. And here we are. Mike Brown fired, the Kings well under 500, underperforming expectations, and it feels like we had 2 good years and we're right back to being the Sacramento Kings organization that everyone knows and hates. Because this feels like the ultimate Sacramento Kings move. It really does. Where, Mike Brown 2 years ago wins Coach of the Year, gets this team to a good record last year. And then in 2 years, the organization gave him one capable wing defender. One capable wing defender the entire time that he was here, and they fire him. One capable wing defender in 3 years, and that is Keegan Murray. And there's nothing else. Like, this roster just has had the same problem, but they needed a scapegoat. And the coach is always the easiest one. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Mike Brown has pushed all the right buttons this season. And it felt like the players had tuned him out. Like, I get that. But what is this going to change? My prediction is, whoever it is, the interim's going to come in and they are going to rattle off a little 4 game win streak and everyone's going to be all happy for a little bit. And then we're going to go right back to what it used to be. Like, that's my prediction. I don't see this solving anything. I would love if, we have a coach come in and they're the perfect coach and they push all the right buttons and everything's perfect, but it's just like, what are the chances that that's going to happen? It's very low when you already have a roster that's so flawed. Like, I really just don't think the coach was the biggest problem here at all. And it's one of those moments where it's like, if we fired Mike Brown last season, then we would just have Jordy Fernandez, but of course Jordy left this offseason and then we fire Mike Brown, so there's really no one to turn to now. I mean, it's like you just extended him. And so it's just that moment where the organization needs a scapegoat. And like I said, it's just the ultimate Sacramento Kings move. Like, I expected this. I mean, I saw it coming. I think most people who have been, fans of the Kings saw something like this coming because something had to change. And the coach is just the one thing that you can just do in a second. You can just say, oh, yeah, you're fired, and then it's done, right? To actually improve the roster, you actually have to like skillfully negotiate and make good moves. With the coach, you can just say, yeah, you're done. And then, hope that things get better. And that's always how it is, just in sports in general, not just with the Kings or in the NBA. That's just sports with coaches. But I will never be able to get over how Mike Brown had only one playable wing his entire time with the Kings. I mean, I'm gonna miss Mike Brown because he was, always entertaining in press conferences and he wasn't afraid to call players out when they were playing poorly. Although it didn't seem like him calling players out did much. I mean, this season he's been stressing the same things over and over again, and it's like we're in elementary school where he just has to say the same simple things over and over again, and the class never listens. And so, from that point of view, I mean, you could look at it 2 ways, right? One is that you do need a different coach just to be able to get the message across differently. But two, it's just like we just have built a roster that isn't going to do those little things that he has stressed to win games. And to me, that is more what's happening because all you have to do is look at the roster and especially look at the starting lineup and it's like you've just built a roster that's too top heavy, but top heavy in a way that doesn't really fit together, and of guys that won't do the little things. I mean, there's a reason why I think Malik Monk is best off the bench, at least in this team, in this roster. And it's because you need a guy in that starting lineup who is going to do the little things. And so it was getting tiring listening to Mike Brown just say the same things over and over. But I mean, what's he supposed to do if the team just never does it and they fire him after a game where he told them to foul, he told them to deny 3-point shooters. They did neither and they lose the game in spectacular fashion. That's just the perfect way to go out of, it's like, well, he told them to do the right things, you know? What more is he supposed to do in that situation? And again, I'm not acting like he's made all the right decisions when it comes to rotations, when it comes to putting the right guys out there at the same times, but at the same time, it feels like he has tried so many different things. And if you just look at this roster, the hope was that they would just outscore people. And so from that perspective, it's like everyone accepted that this roster had flaws coming into this season. And it was just hopefully you could outperform those flaws like they did 2 seasons ago and to some extent last season. But for me, I think it's just a hard pill to swallow that the front office, again, for 2 straight seasons, didn't address the most obvious, biggest issues that everyone in the entire league could see. And that's what gets Mike Brown fired. And so now Mike Brown is extended through 2027 and he's going to sit on the couch and he's going to get a paycheck. Good for him. And so you're going to be paying Mike Brown. And so really the team was willing to take the hit on paying Mike Brown this money and also paying obviously another coach more than they were willing to take a risk with the actual roster, more than they were willing to go into the luxury tax. And, with the luxury tax, it's like they weren't willing to pay the luxury tax. More so, it's about the revenue that comes in. And so just firing Mike Brown is more cost efficient than going into the luxury tax, because if you go into the luxury tax, you're not getting that tax revenue coming in. So from a money standpoint, it's like, firing Mike Brown was the cheaper option. And that's how it always feels with this organization. It was the cheaper option. It was the easy way out. It was a move that just comes out of desperation and comes out of trying to scapegoat someone to avert the blame from ownership and from the front office. And I feel like kind of everyone's been saying it in Sacramento, is that this is a top to bottom failure this season. And so, they're going to try to pin it on Mike Brown, but this is everyone failing right now for this team. But it's like, where do you go from here? Is this firing? Now you're just going to try to bring someone else in, make one small move at the deadline that isn't going to be enough, and then you kind of just keep trying to go for it and keep failing. That's where it feels like this season is heading. And I really do think that the smarter move would be to now, well, you fired Mike Brown. That's done. So you try to go get a young up and coming head coach and you rebuild. Like, that's probably the best option at this point, because if you're going to fire the head coach, I just don't see how that can be the only change. And so you either go with a young up and coming coach that you try to rebuild a team and build with, or you just go and you hire Mark Jackson, who is the guy that was rumored alongside Mike Brown a few years ago when the Kings were looking at head coaching candidates, and we just get into even more of a mess. But you knew something was coming. When you go 0-5 on a homestand, to go 5 games below 500, you got to do something. So you knew something was coming. But again, it's this team not willing to put its money where its mouth is, I guess, and try to, go get a player to come help this roster and go make a big move on the player side to help this roster. And instead, you fire the coach, which isn't really going to make a difference, in my opinion. And it's just sad because it feels like we have just now, with the firing of Mike Brown, kind of exited the Beam Team era and gone straight back into being the Kings. Straight back into a dysfunctional franchise that isn't run well. it looks even worse because it's like they had him run a full practice, they had him talk to the media, and then 10 minutes later, he's fired. And so again, that's just pointing to just a bad look on the franchise. And and so that's kind of what this move keeps coming back to for me is it signals that this franchise is exactly the same franchise that missed the playoffs for 16 straight seasons or whatever it was. And it just signals that the organization hasn't learned anything, that ownership hasn't learned anything, and that we're going to just go right back into the cycle of finishing 11th, 12th in the West and staying in mediocrity or just below mediocrity forever. That's what this signals to me. It's just a move that's not surprising to me, but it's just sad. Another scapegoated coach, and hopefully we get lucky and we get a great coach that comes in. But it's like you fired Mike Brown. What are the chances you get a coach that comes in and is as good or better than Mike Brown? Feels very low to me. It'll be interesting though to see where this team goes from here. It's going to be interesting, but I don't look forward to it because I've said it I've said it for the past week or so that it feels like this team is going to make the wrong decision in whatever it does. And this is the start of what I was talking about, I think. And I just want to know who made this decision. Like, obviously, Vivek would have signed off on it, but was it him just totally coming in and saying, like, he wants to change at coach? Because that's kind of what it feels like. Maybe it was, just the front office wanting to go a different direction, but this feels like the ultimate Vivek move of coming in and interfering with what the front office is doing. So anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. Let me know what you guys think of this move. Who you want the Kings to go out and get as coach. If y'all have any ideas about that, I would love to hear it. But as always, thank you to the members of this channel for the support. No Rain and Joe Mama. And I will see you guys when the Kings make another move, I guess. Peace.